I realized recently I've only been making one type of invader, and when I mean one type of invader, I don't mean like a strength build, I don't mean like an int build, I don't mean like a faith build. I mean I've been making just mostly melee focused characters over the last, several months, since a couple of months after the DLC came out. It's funny that I'm thinking about this now because I've been watching a lot of Rofo the Germ's recent videos that he's come out with, and he's back in his Age of Mage arc again, where he's making a bunch of different mage characters and making videos about them. And I was thinking about it. I have not made a mage build in months, I don't think, since pretty much the start of Shadow of the Erd Tree. And I haven't really had an interest in it. It's not that I don't like mages, and it's not that I don't like hybrid spellcasters. I've made plenty of them in my time in Elden Ring, but they haven't called to me recently. If I had to describe what I've really been interested in, it's been characters with offhand melee synergies or unique offhand melee synergies. I made a lot of arcane builds, I noticed recently. Some of them are focused around bleed, but most of them are focused around the idea of proccing a status effect and then proccing like a damage boosting talisman, and then switching to a more powerful physical damage weapon after that's been activated. Something along those lines. I've made several builds, including the one that you see here, which is Ren, Blood of Fire, which I will not be talking about in this video, but I may talk about in the future. There's another build similar, though, that'll be the first one I'm going to discuss in this. But yeah, that's kind of what I've really been looking into and really been interested in. Alright, welcome to an old build reimagined. This is the Dart Tree Puppet. If any of y'all remember my Bomb Logic video from like a year or so ago, this is that character. He's just been reimagined and repurposed. I didn't remake the character, I just remade a whole new build and turned him into a Strength Arcane character from what was a Dex character. Again, this is a completely new build, just the name has been kept over, because I really liked it. This character follows the playstyle I was just mentioning a minute ago, where I have either a soft swap or offhand weapon that applies a status effect. That status effect will then trigger a damage boosting talisman, which I will use to swap to something that is a little bit more aggressive, a little bit stronger, a physically or just kind of a weapon that's infused that does just a purely physical type of damage. In this case, for the Dart Tree Puppet, it is the blood infused Iron Greatsword. Now, how I'm using this: if a party is pretty passive, those poisoned hands are probably going to be used two-handed. So I'm going to be aggressively chasing the host phantoms down with L1, kind of harassing them with that, the running L1s, jumping R2s, whatever it takes to get poison proc on as many characters and players as possible to really start hurting their flask economy and making them use up either any like just random boluses they might have, if they do have them, which is rare, or at least a flask or two to kind of start the invasion off, which is a really good place for me to start wearing down their overall economy. Here are the stats on the screen. You can see them. The most important things are 45 vigor, 23 strength, and 40 arcane for that damage. I've got the two-handed sword talisman, Kindred of Rot talisman, which is our big damage talisman, Star Scourge, and Bull Goats on this. So again, how I'm using this, right? If a party is playing pretty passively, using those poison hands two-handed, dual wielding them to really get that poison proc on a couple of different characters. If they are slightly more aggressive, I might use the offhand poison hands and do kind of like a punch for an L1, L1, R1 on the Iron Greatsword combo, which actually comes out really fast and is pretty fun to mix up. Or if they have a lot of Piper Armor, if they have a lot of poise, if the party is really coming after me and I need to get them off me, I will use that Blood Iron Greatsword two-handed to really, really aggressively get those blood procs going. And that's, again, going to be really, really wearing down their flasks, which is the whole name of the game in Invasions. I talk a lot about economy. I am in finance, so it makes sense. But economy is the name of the game. You are wearing down the party's economy, and you are maintaining your own economy, and that is how you win Invasions. It sounds boring. It's 100% true. I guess I should talk about the Ash of War on the Poison Hands too, which is that poison handshake essentially, which pretty much initially, as soon as you activate it, if you hit somebody with it, it will give them poison, it will proc poison on them. It's good, it works well, but people have to literally walk into it, which isn't really a problem for most hosts or phantoms. But I don't want to just assume that most people are going to be dumb enough to just walk right into it. So I will use that if I can hit it, but most times I find the best way to really get this build going is to, again, just do those running L1s, jumping R2s. Jumping R2s, especially if you can land them, really seem to get that poison going. And from there, I will switch immediately again to whatever setup I'm going to use, two-handed, one-handed offhand, which you can kind of see here, which I'm using, that combo. It's very, very fun. It works really, really well. I'm going to be showing a couple of losses in this video. Just a couple other things that I have on this build. Not really important, but just some other tools that I use. Great stars with Raptors in the Mist. It's always really, really useful when you're in like a tomb like this to have Raptors of the Mist on something just to deal with these chariots. It makes it much, much more manageable. And honestly, it's like phantoms will walk out into the middle of this so much just to try to hit you, and to have a tool that just makes it so you don't take damage while they take all the damage in the world will help you out so much. It's great. It really is something you should put on. Now, I make a mistake in this. If you notice, I forget to put on any more blue after this, any more of my blue flasks. I'm just keep getting hit by this chariot. I'm wondering what is happening. I don't know if I'm mistiming or what's going on, but I'm just not paying attention. It's okay though, I'm going to get one more phantom kill on this, and sometimes that's the name of the game. You don't have to kill everybody. If you can kill 2 phantoms and the host has to either run back entirely or try to fight the boss on his own, that essentially is a win in an invasion in my book. I think that counts. Recently too, I've been getting a whole lot of random 1v1 encounters with players that are running decent setups, like decent builds, like this guy right here who's running main hand, golden halberd, offhand. I can't remember what that's called. It's the whatever the chopper offhand is, the the axe. Anyway, it's I guess it's a consequence of Elden Ring getting a little bit more aged. People are just kind of running and doing their own taunters ton things, which is fine because a lot of the builds I come across are not too bad, and it is kind of fun. These are good use cases to see if this build actually works in the situations that I want it to against players. It's fun killing whole groups of people with it, and that's what I really want to do. But I know if I can beat a player like this, that if I'm coming across like a party in an invasion and I kill the phantom and the host is running a build like that, 1v1, even though they have more flasks, even though they have more, I guess, tools altogether, if this build can work against a player like this, I know that it will work against a player like this, like a host, at the very end of an invasion after I've killed the other phantoms. And it's just a fun test case to see, hey, like, can the build that I've made stand up to like the YouTube builds, like the builds that people go on and just be like, oh, that's the good build, the build that works. I've talked a lot about making fun builds, making interesting builds. And I kind of want to set the record straight. Sometimes I feel like people think that I mean like if I say an interesting build, like a quirky build, or something that just, oh, like, haha, that was funny that worked that one time, but it won't work, you know, like in a serious invasion. I hope people would have realized by now that build making for me isn't about making like just stupid things. Like it's about making things that beat or can beat the things that are really easy to use and that people can just slap on and kill 99% of people with. Like, those aren't fun to me. What's fun is killing people who use those builds with builds that I make up. Alright, let's move on to something fun here. This is the Starless Saint. this build is still kind of in the works. It's around rune level 100 or 101 right now, and I'm slowly working it up to, I think like 135 or 150, somewhere. I haven't decided yet. Because the rune level 100 range is not really the best range to play at, but honestly, I usually have 1 or 2 builds that are somewhere in a transition phase at any point in time. I just like invading at different level ranges, even ones that are not all that great. Like this one's, I think he can hit like rune level 125 hosts with plus 25 weapons, so that's obviously not the most fun area to play in. But this entire build was just made to use the Great Katana, specifically just one Great Katana, the actual Great Katana. So I wanted to use overhead stance on it. Now, I was talking with Storyteller the other day when he was just streaming, and I was telling Storyteller and a bunch of other people about Great Katanas. And there was a mixed reaction to it. Some people really like Great Katanas, some people really don't. I think people that really like it just were talking about how good the running R1 pokes were on it, and I agree. That is definitely the best attack. That is definitely the best move on this weapon. And if you see most people use it, who are either tryharding with it or just playing with it generally, casually, most of the time you'll just see a series of running R1 or staggered R1 pokes because they do a ton of damage. They're slightly hard to dodge, and they come up pretty fast. They're really good. And that's the same reason why Storyteller didn't like it, was because it just seems to be all running R1 pokes. I would agree without overhead stance on it. Now, overhead stance is also an Ash of War that you rarely see people use because it has a dubious use case and people seem to think it's not that great. And I'll agree it's not the best Ash of War in existence ever. But it is uniquely paired to go with the Great Katana. It is the only weapon, the Great Katana is the only weapon that overhead stance can be used on. All the other Great Katanas have their own inherent Ashes of War. So you would think that this specifically is meant to go on this weapon, and it is. Overhead stance, compared to something like Lightning Slash or another type of Ash of War like that, is never going to give you as much damage. It's not going to give you as much of like a meta use case. But what it does for this weapon is it really diversifies the moveset and the types of attacks you can use on it. Now, again, I say this as I'm just doing R1 running pokes in the background, but I promise you I'll show them more in a minute and what I'm talking about and why I really like it for the Great Katana. But right now, let's talk about this invasion a little bit. It's a very classic setup. Over-leveled melee guy up front and a mage in the back, a squishy mage. In this type of situation, it pays to be patient and really wait for the melee person to make a mistake, the over-level phantom to make a mistake. All you gotta do is just not get too aggressive, because if you get too aggressive, you're gonna get shot by that mage in the background, get stun locked enough for this guy with this huge weapon to hit you, and then you're gonna die. Also, if you don't have fan daggers, please, please, please put fan daggers in your build. It has got me the kill on so many different occasions, it's ridiculous. Now, after you have dealt with the melee character, obviously now I'm going to have to go for this Moonveil parry, because this guy's just been shooting me in the background with spells the entire time, and if I see a Moonveil, a solo Moonveil user, the only way I want to kill them is with a parry. But in these situations, again, just play patiently, just wait for the Phantom to make a mistake, and then once they do, aggressively punish it, and then just play carefully, play safely with the host. And if you want to get like a stylish kill on him, you can go for that. But again, patience is the name of the game. You have patience, you will win, most likely. The other thing that makes this character unique is that it is a fine Crucible Feather Talisman build. I have never used any of the Crucible Talismans because I've been pretty dubious of anything that increases my damage taken without giving me a noticeable stat increase. I was pleasantly surprised with it though, and I'll talk a little bit about it in a second, but first I want to go back and discuss overhead stance a little longer. You can see here we're fighting someone using the Rakshasa's Great Katana, and I'm going to lose that first Hyper Armor trade with the Weed Cutter, which is not surprising. But where overhead stance really shines is that it is a really, really good roll catch. You see there I did that running R1 into the L2, R2 as they were trying to roll away, and I caught them a couple of times and killed them. Another really good one, and probably the one I like more, is an L2, R1 roll catch. And if you perform this the right way, and at the right timing, you can continually roll catch people almost to death, but it does take a little bit of feeling. You see here I got 1, 2, and I'll miss the third, but that bleed buildup from the Phantom hit will be enough to get that host. That is a really, really fun way to use this weapon. And I'm hoping that you're kind of starting to see why overhead stance, I think, is what really rounds out the Great Katana a good bit. Without it, you just really have those running R1s. The running R2s, and the R2s were nerfed. They were slowed. I don't think that they've actually done anything about that. I'm pretty sure that that has stayed the same since whatever patch actually nerfed that. So the running R2s, the R1s, a lot of the attacks on this are not that great. But with overhead stance, you have something to follow up with your running R1, so you're not just doing that over and over again. Now, I don't want to put you under any, illusions. Running R1, running R1, running R1 is still the best way to use this weapon. It's just not the funnest way to use this weapon. So I propose instead running R1 into L2 R2 or running L1 into L1 R1 for a continual roll catch. And then if you really, really want to make this weapon feel great, as I have, again, I'm making this whole build around Great Katana, is I put the deflecting hard tier on this with the guard counter talisman. So you can see now what I'm kind of going for with this, right? It's a backstep Great Katana character. So I am essentially opening up a ton of different new attacks and attack avenues, and making this weapon overall just feel a lot more like it should. I'm getting backstep iframes, so I can backstep R1, backstep R2. I can do R1 into L2 R1. I can do R1 into L2 R2. And I can do a quick deflect, perfect block, and then go into like a guard counter. There's a lot of things that I can make this weapon do. And honestly, on this type of build, Great Katana feels really, really good. It's no longer just that blending, running R1 machine. It is a fluid feeling weapon that feels completely well-rounded. And honestly, this is kind of what it should feel like, in my opinion. I think that this is the best way to play Great Katana. And if you're still dubious of it, that's fine. But I'm just showing what I've done with it and why I think this is so much fun to play with it this way. In fact, I think this is pretty much the only way to really play with it if you want to make it anything but just that, again, that running R1 machine. I think this is a good place to start. Welcome to my cosplay build, my Bloodborne cosplay build. This is the Unseen Gaoler. It's not going to be like one of those cosplays where it's like going for a trick weapon or like, swapping like Saint does from one weapon to another, like an ultra great sword to a straight sword or anything like that. Now he just has two weapons he primarily uses, and the fashion is supposed to look like one of the hunters from the Unseen Village from Bloodborne because of the helmet, the clothes, all of that. I really, really like the fashion on this, and I'm a big fan of it. It took me a long time to put together. Again, two big things on this are the straight sword, the long sword, and the mace with shield. Now, I don't think I've actually talked about mace with shield so far. I was put onto it by Felicificity, or by Fel, who I think in turn found it from somebody else. I can't remember the YouTube video right now. If I remember it and I can find it, I'll post it below. But mace with shield is really, really, really fun because the R2s, one-handed, get inherent hyper armor, so you can trade with people really, really, really well. And the thing that I kind of like to do with it is just R1, R1, R2. And that R2 at the end of that chain is a really good roll catch for people trying to roll away. It's surprisingly good. It's so good that I catch people with it probably 60, 70% of the time. It is a very fun weapon to use. It has a lot more utility than you would think. And with a shield, with like guard counters, with parries, man, it's a very, very fun tool set to use. Now, I'm gushing about the mace, but the mace is not the main feature of the weapon, or the main weapon on this build. That is the longsword. And this character does one thing pretty much, and that is utilizing a couple of different talismans to really make one specific Ash of War work. And that Ash of War is Standoff. Now, Standoff comes standard on a lot of straight swords, and this build particularly is nothing all that new. The talisman setup is something you've probably seen before. I think Saint has made some iteration of this, 1 or 2 times. Here you can see the stats: 40 vigor, 40 strength, a little bit of intelligence, just to use the mist, the Night Maiden's Mist, which, again, you may say, hey, Rendon, that's a spell. And I will say, no, it's a tool, and it is not a spell, but it is kind of a spell. But we're going to ignore that because that's the only spell that I'm really using in this. On this character, the talismans on this, what you saw a minute ago, are Rolana's talisman and also the Spear talisman. Now, to make this work, we are relying on the stance damage from Rolana's talisman. And that activation takes a little bit longer than you think. It takes about a full second to really get the buff going from the Rolana's talisman. Now, you may say that a second is not that much time, but a second is a lot of time. If you're fighting 2, 3 people, even one person with a decent build, 1 second is too much. It is far too much. So the best way to make this work that I found is to kind of trick people into it. Whether you're kiting people away, then you activate the stance and wait for them to run into it. If you run around a corner, which you've seen me a couple of times, wait and activate it and then launch it when people are coming your way. Honestly, it's going to be really hard to lock onto people and land the L2, R2. You're going to have to learn how to free aim it. And that's kind of what I've been doing with this most of the time. And free aiming it works really well. It's not that hard to aim and land if you can really practice it and get good at it. But that is going to be most certainly the best way that you actually land this stance, or land this L2, R2 stance attack with the talisman. And let me tell you, it will hit for like 800, 900 damage if you get everything going for it. Especially if you get counter damage with that Spear talisman. And the two-handed sword talisman, oh man, it is really, 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 really damaging. At rune level 70 with a Sword Seal, this character feels surprisingly durable too. It might have something to do with the armor I've chosen, but I really don't think it's that. I think it's the fact that I just have a shield that I'm constantly using on this build. Being able to parry, block, or use carry and retaliation on any number of things really kind of makes this build go a long way to feel a little bit more defensive, and like it can last a little longer, it can survive a little longer. The Mesmer Soldier shield itself I didn't choose for any other reason besides the fact that it looks really cool, and I think it fits thematically on this character. Not that shields were something that would be on any Bloodborne cosplay character, but it's Elden Ring, so we're just going with it. You really need something with carry and retaliation on it. A couple other things that I put on this. I have a couple of different weapons, including the magic jar cannon here, which I have enough int and other stats to use. Very, very handy to put on. Now we also have the Milady, which can also take advantage of that stance buff from Rolana's talisman. But I wanted to point something out here that I thought was interesting, and this is kind of the perfect clip to do it. We can see here that we have 2 opponents, 1 overleveled character in front of me who is using the Frenzy Shield. And I was testing a little bit to see what weapon would be a little bit better for dealing with someone like this. And as you can see, the first time I hit the Phantom here with the L2, R2 stance on this, I landed it because they were rolling at that moment. But this shield that they have is blocking the L2, R2. I bet you it would block the L1, the L2, R1, although I didn't get to try it in this. And it's not doing as well as I was hoping it would. Now, don't get me wrong, Milady is an S-tier weapon in Elden Ring. It always has been, and it probably always will be, just because of the R2s on it, which makes it a beautiful weapon. The fact that the R2s are the strong thing on it, that's lovely and wonderful. So I decided to pull back out the longsword to see if I could use it to deal with this person, and guess what does work? That's beautiful right there. Absolutely beautiful. I need to use standoff more. So I can't get the kill here, unfortunately, because the host hits me just enough to let this guy get a head start. But that's okay, because I've kind of proven what works and what does not work on this. And we can just kind of switch back to the melee to get a little bit more damage in. There's not a whole lot more to point out in this invasion. It'll play out a little bit longer, but the host will start getting too aggressive, and eventually, just because of that, they will lose, because they will just make a mistake that I will punish pretty badly here in a minute. But you can kind of see this build is very fun. This is probably my favorite build I've made in a little bit. It's very simple. It's fun to play. It's nothing flashy, and it has a main gimmick that's not really all that easy to land constantly. There are some other things on it that make it kind of a little handy. You know, like if I'm using the R2 pokes on the longsword for like a thrusting, you get some counter damage off on that. The two-handed sword talisman works pretty well if I'm using the longsword two-handed, which I usually am. So that's just a pretty generic buff that works for this character really well. It's just a very fun build. It's just super fun. One more thing. The running R2s, two-handed with longsword, are very good. They feel very easy to land. They're smooth. They do a lot of damage. You can easily chain them. That is something that I wanted to mention too. If you want to try this build out or something like this, I would really recommend it. Again, you have to kind of bait people like you do here to land some of these stance attacks. But if you can really get it going, I just got mollywomped there by that by that Ash of War. It is a super fun build. It's a super fun play style to utilize. So yeah, it's been good. It's been fun. And with that, we're closing out another chapter in Rendon's uploading saga. Again, I have a child now, so it's a little bit harder to find the time to put these together. But I'm still finding it, and I'm still enjoying Elden Ring, despite the fact I'm playing a couple of other games in the background too. I just finished Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 not too long ago, which was incredibly fun. Highly recommend that game. And now I'm about to jump into Avowed next, so hopefully I'll enjoy that at least somewhere near as much. But I'm not expecting a ton, not because I think the game is bad, but I'm just going into games now without high expectations. I just want to see if I enjoy it. If I don't enjoy it, it's fine. Or if I just enjoy it a little bit, that's good too. So I will leave you with this very fun fight with old Guardian Oso here, who I fought a couple of times in my last couple string of invasions. Very fun player to play against. And I will see you all in the next one. So, all right, peace.